welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast. Now, my next guest introduced the philosophy of noble purpose in her best-selling book, Selling with Noble Purpose. Her research documents how organizations with a bigger purpose than money make more money and experience greater customer and employee retention. Her firm's clients include Hootsuite, Roche, Volvo, and Dave & Buster's. Welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, Lisa Earl McLeod.
Such a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, I've just told Lisa I'm her #1 fan, and there is a film about this as well. I'm not that kind of fan with, yeah. I am a real fan.
We have a real connection. You're not going to keep me in your basement or anything.
No, I'm not. Now, given that we're all experiencing challenging times, Lisa, what would you advise sellers to do so they can ride out the pandemic and come out strong?
So the first thing that I would say that sellers need to do is breathe. And the reason I say that is you need to pause momentarily, because what happens as a seller is fear takes over and your brain goes lightning speed from, oh my gosh, it's a pandemic, I can't meet my customers, business is going to go down, to, oh my gosh, then I'm never going to make a sale again, and then I'm going to have to live in my parents' basement, and my life as I know it'll be over. That is not the right mindset for a sales call. And even if you're not going that far, you don't want to come across as graspy. It's the worst energy ever. So the first thing you want to do is breathe. The second thing you want to do is identify how you've helped customers in the past and get really clear. The next thing you want to do is say, okay, if that's how I've helped people in the past, is that still valuable? Is that still helpful, or has it changed some? And you want to have a super clear story in your head about how you can make a difference to customers. Then you're in the right mindset to reach out.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. Now, I read your book. Before that, I liked you. When I read your book, I absolutely loved you. Selling with Noble Purpose. Now, I love the concept of caring more for your customers than for making the sale, just doing the numbers. And this is what you call NSP, Noble Selling Purpose. So why is it important to have clarity around purpose in sales?
Well, if you ask most people, what's the purpose of sales? They will tell you, close the business. But I want you to think of this from the customer's perspective. Imagine there are two salespeople and they are both getting ready to make a sales call on you. And one of them sits down with their manager and gets the advice, I need you to close it. I need you to go hard. We need this business. Close it, close it, close it. And the other one, their manager says, I want you to focus on how can we improve life for this customer? How can we help their business be better? How can we help them save time, be more efficient, be more powerful? So one seller enters the call thinking about, I need to close this. And the other seller enters the call thinking, I want to figure out how to help you. Who do you want calling on you? Yeah, it's kind of obvious. And the thing that's not so obvious is that second salesperson who's thinking, how can I be the most helpful? A couple things happen. One, they close more business. We have concrete evidence that they close more business. But the other thing is interesting is they close higher margin business because they haven't commoditized themselves because they're so focused on how they're improving life for customers.
So link the purpose, the organizational purpose, to those kind of different ways of selling.
So if I'm a seller, so I'll go back to those two examples and I'll give you a super quick scenario that was one of our clients. They provided IT services for small business. And before we started working on them, they said, we provide IT services for small business. We shifted and their noble sales purpose became, we help small businesses become more successful. Seems like just a simple, nuanced shift, but the guy who shows up and says, I sell IT services is focused on himself and his product. The guy who shows up and says, my noble sales purpose is to help small businesses be more successful, And you, small business, let's talk about what success means for you. It's a strategic shift in the way you approach the business that results in 100 different tactical changes. And that's why you close more business.
Right. So is it just at an organizational level that your kind of mission statement, your purpose statement has to be completely focused on what you do for your customer?
Right. So it is both the larger, the macro, and the micro, because how we landed on this idea of selling with noble purpose was actually studying it in the micro. What we found was individual salespeople, irregardless of what the messaging was at the top of their company, the individual salespeople who had this clarity of what we came to call noble purpose, absolute clarity about how they wanted to make a difference to customers, and that drove their day-to-day thought track, their behaviors, everything they did. They were the top performers. We did studies across numerous companies. They were the top performers. Then when you apply it in the larger, when a company does it, those companies outperform the market by about 350%. And what's interesting when you talk about mission, let's call it like it is here. A lot of companies have really boring, benign mission statements.
And boring doesn't serve anybody.
No. We have a chapter in the new book we have coming out called Why Specificity is Sexy. And the problem with most mission statements is we want to be a good member of the community. We want to provide good services, find a return to shareholders, blah, 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 blah. If you're a salesperson, what am I supposed to do? How does that affect me? And so when I say they're boring because they cast too wide a net. What we say about a noble purpose is it is something like, we make small businesses more successful, which is hardly the most exciting phrase in the world, but it is clear what your job is to do.
But it's almost like the best statements are those that get the right people that you're targeting to want to know how. How are you going to do? They recognize themselves in the statement, and they want to know how you're going to make me better, bigger, more profitable, or serving my customers better.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the sales call, you said something really important there that I wanted to circle back to. They recognize themselves in the statement. And that is so important, because there's two people that need to recognize themselves in the statement. The customer says, oh, you make small businesses more successful? How do you do that? And the seller, because the seller needs to identify as, I am a person who makes small businesses more successful. And then that sets the agenda for how they work together. And so I often use that one, which is a customer of ours that did a 10x on growth when they made that shift. I use it because it's so concrete and clear. But we had another client, and you can look at them on our website, a bank, and their noble purpose was, we fuel prosperity, which I love that. But imagine a bunch of bankers going out saying, I am here to help fuel prosperity. Let's talk about what prosperity means to you and how we do it. They're completely differentiated.
It's really energizing, isn't it? Because the seller has real clarity, and it's almost like a benchmark that you can measure everything against. Is this delivering this? And you know in the statement it's for a particular customer, or to do a particular job for a customer. It's not just self-serving, but it's a great benchmark that everyone can measure themselves against.
That's exactly right. And this bank that I mentioned, and the CEOs on our website talking about what it did for them, and they became differentiated. They increased their earnings. They had more employee engagement. They were voted a best bank of the year. He's on like the cover of American Banker. And what it does is it shifts the strategic lens on the business, because the default strategic lens on the business is, how can we make more money? And this says, how can we best improve life for customers? And the profit comes out of that. It doesn't mean you give away your services, but it happens at a strategic decision-making level, but it also happens for the seller, the individual seller, because then the seller says, oh, that becomes my job. It's the what of your organization. This is what we do, which is not just provide IT or provide banking. It's having an impact on customers.
Now, I talk about customer-centric selling, and this is why when I read your book, it's like this really resonated with me. But we all know organizations that have what they think is a noble purpose doesn't alone make a product-focused organization customer-centric. So there must be organizations that think they're customer-centric that you come across.
Right.
How do you get them to move in that direction so it's more of a noble purpose?
Right. Well, the challenge with customer centricity, as it is practiced by most organizations, is it's a concept, but there's no clarity of impact. So I could say, I want you to be customer centric, and that could be anything from ask more questions to reduce our profit margin by giving away product to, just trying to be nicer to people. It's really difficult. But if I say, we have a clear sight line on how we are trying to improve customers. So it's not just being nice to customers, it's trying to improve customers. Then that becomes measurable. And that becomes something I can ask you in a sales coaching session. How is the customer going to be improved as a result of doing business with us? Explain it. Mm-hmm. It's something I can decide from a product standpoint. Is this the best way to improve customers' lives? Is this the most important thing? And, Henry Ford said something really famous that's been quoted a lot. If I'd asked the customers what they wanted, they'd have said faster horses. And what we've seen is that when you have clarity, when your job is to fuel prosperity or make small businesses more successful, or you mentioned Dave & Buster's, which is an American place, to champion laugh out loud fun, because they're a bar kind of place that hopefully people will go to again. When you have that clarity, it improves your strategic decision making, because then you're not guessing what customers want. Then you have to go find out, how can we actually improve their lives, not just serve up a non-differentiated offering.
Excellent. Now, you're revising your book, the second edition of Selling Noble Purpose. Right. What is in there that isn't in the previous edition?
Well, I'll tell you, there's two things that are really big that are in there that we're so excited about. First and foremost, we have case studies. We have case studies about how we go through like 20 companies, different companies, exactly how they did it at every level and what results they got. And when we wrote the book the first time, we had some psychological research about what it did, and we had a few examples, but now we have like 20 sizable companies that have done this. So there's a clear template. And as a result of working with those companies, we added a whole section in there called the manager as a belief builder. Because what we saw in these companies is that frontline managers are key, and they need to be armed with the techniques and tools to pivot their teams. Because for decades, I mean, you and I have been in sales for a while, and for decades, companies have tried to move from transactional, and they've tried to transform themselves into this customer centric. And we do all kinds of coaching and all kinds of things, but it never really sticks. And the reason it doesn't stick is because the cadence of frontline sales is close it, close it, close it. So we had to come up with a bunch of tools and techniques, and we tested them so frontline managers can still have that same urgency, but it's around improve life for the customer, improve life for the customer. And so we've got a whole section on what called manager as a belief builder, what they need to do. And it's been transformative for some of our clients.
Excellent. So when's that out?
It comes out at the end of August, and it's got the same title. I also have a secret weapon, which is
you can just share that with me.
I will share it, but you can't get it. You can get it in the book. Who came to work on my team a couple of years ago, and she's an industrial psychologist. And so a lot of the background in the book around like why these things work and how to tap into the psychology came from her. So she's a co-author this time.
Fantastic, fantastic. So what practical strategies would you offer the listeners so that they can enable their buyers to buy and build long-term trusted relationships?
So a couple of things that I suggest that you do. The first thing is answer what we call the 3 discovery questions. And this is not an esoteric exercise. This is a very practical exercise. You have to identify, how do I make a difference? Whether you're a solo entrepreneur, whether you're working for a big company, how does my offering make a difference? So you're moving from pleasing customers to improving customers. So identify, how does my offering make a difference? Then the second thing you want to identify is, how do we do it differently than the competition? And the third thing is, reflect on yourself and say, ask yourself, on my best day, what do I love about my job? Those 3 questions become your new sales narrative, the answer to those. That's when you have clarity about what your noble purpose is, and that shifts the lens. Then as a seller, once you have clarity about that, then what you need to do is go through your, whatever your sales process is, if you're a 1-call close, a 1-year close, whatever it is, and say, how am I bringing that to life in my sales process? It's shocking the difference that it makes.
Wow. Well, run through those 3 questions again.
So they're the 3 discovery questions. They're in the book. How do I make a difference? And I want to be really clear, this is not just your company's standard blah, blah, blah value prop. This is, think about customers that either you or someone else sold, and how did you actually improve their lives or their businesses? Did they get faster? Did they get more time with their families? Like, take the through line all the way through about the impact. Then how do you do it differently? Maybe you have some different features than your competition, or maybe you care more. Maybe you stick with them longer. Like, really think about, how do you make a difference and how do you do it differently? What are your competitive differentiators? And then the reason the last question is, on my best day, what do I love about my job? Is because your emotional engagement is one of the single most important things in your ability to sell. And you need that mental picture. You know, Selling with Noble Purpose was actually born in an airport parking lot when I had a seller who was in the pharmaceutical business describe to me this one particular grandmother that took her company's drug, that ran into her in a waiting room somewhere and said, this drug has changed my life. I want to thank you, when she saw this sales rep. And that's where the whole concept was born, because when I heard that story, I realized she has a different mental picture in her head than everyone else. Everyone else is thinking, oh, I got to go out and hit these sales numbers. She's thinking, how many grandmothers are out there? I can change their lives. So your mental frame as a seller is your most valuable asset.
I think that's really relevant now, as we've all kind of taken a step back and, as you say, breathe and really kind of understand your place in the world. And, you know, for those salespeople that have been furloughed, they may actually not want to go back in the same culture and environment that they've been in, and maybe rethinking what they want to do with their lives. And then this almost gives them a ticket, if they can find the right environment, a ticket to actually continue to sell, but to do it and still feel that it's worthwhile, that you're really doing a good job, that you have a noble purpose.
And this time has given us a reset. And I think what's happened is, we often have these in our lives. If you've ever lost a parent, been through a health crisis, you start to think, who am I and why am I here? What's happened now is we've all gone through it at the same time. And we're starting to think, who am I and why am I here? And what we know about humans is, across all culture and ages, we have 2 core needs: belonging and significance. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, and we want our work and our lives to matter. And if you're not getting that in your work, and you had to go home and do it every day, it's going to be a grind, and it is going to have a chilling effect on every other relationship of your life, and it's going to have a chilling effect on your health. So if you can get yourself in a situation where what you're doing makes a difference, and you have a clear sight line to that, it changes your life. It literally changes your whole life. And I think one of the things that people often do is, like this, I talked about a banker, these people in IT, these people selling pharmaceuticals, Oftentimes what we do is making a difference, but we lose the sight line to it. And so before you said, oh, we're just bankers, we shouldn't work here. Like, oh, we just do, software, we shouldn't work here. I should be feeding the poor. If you want to feed the poor, jump on it. But look at the sight line of how what you're doing makes an impact on others. And if you can keep that front and center in your heart every day, the data tells us you will be so much happier and you will be a top performer.
Wonderful, wonderful.